This is chapter 8 verse 56 of the Holy Quran. And when you make a peace treaty and the opposition breaks that treaty and they don't keep to their side of the bargain or their duty, and then if you overtake them in war, scatter them by those who are behind them so that they may remember. And if you fear treachery on their part, throw back to them their treaty on terms of equality. Surely Allah loves not the treacherous. In verse 61, verses 61 and 62, and if they incline to peace, you should also incline to peace, and trust in Allah. Surely He is the hearer, the knower. And if they intend to deceive you, surely Allah is enough for you. He it is who strengthened you with His help and with the believers. We see in the Muslim world today, there is much acrimony. Whichever country, whichever land, whichever continent you look at, Muslims are in an uproar. We are told that a khilafat has been established in Iraq. Now you see, there are certain, the Holy Quran here talks about agreements. There are certain international agreements which are not signed, but which have been in force and which have been obeyed by people for not only centuries but millennia. Whatever government takes place, comes into being, by whatever means, by elections, by revolution, by force of arms, abides by those agreements. One of them is that diplomatic staff, ambassadors, have complete sanctuary and security. And this international understanding, this agreement has been there for millennia, not just a few decades, not just a few centuries, for thousands of years. This has been the basis of dealings between states. In a way, it's not written down. It's not signed by any government or state or political party, but whenever a government is formed in a country, it is automatically assumed that it is going to abide by that agreement, that those who have diplomatic immunity, their property, their persons, are sacrosanct. The same applies to journalists these days. There has been an understanding that a journalist is independent of the two parties who are fighting. Whatever his religion, whatever his color, whatever his political views, when he is reporting something from a place, he is independent. His independence is to be respected and he is to be protected so far as he can. Obviously, if he goes out into the field of the battle and there's a fight taking place and he gets hit by something and he is injured or dies, that's a separate matter. But news reporters, television reporters, radio reporters, if we think back to recent wars, Second World War, First World War, we see this happening. Another international agreement, it may not be written down anywhere, is that those providing medical facilities, their property, their persons are sacrosanct. Hospitals, during the time of war these days, they put a red cross made on a sheet of plastic or cloth or something on the top of the hospital to show that this is a medical facility. Ambulances similarly have a mark on them to show that they are medical facilities. They are treating, they are taking wounded to be treated. Even in the middle of a battle during the First World War, when fighting stopped, medical orderlies were allowed to go out onto the battlefield and take the wounded back for treatment, or even remove the dead for burial, to show respect. Some of these traditions started with the Holy Prophet Muhammad. It was for the first time that it was the Prophet of Allah who forbade mutilation of dead bodies of enemy soldiers. It was the Prophet of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who for the first time in history said it was the duty of the Muslim army to bury the enemy's dead as well as their own. And we know that at the end of battles that took place, Muslims would show respect to the dead belonging to their opponents. They would dig graves for them, they would bury them, etc., etc. They would take the injured and treat them. It is a matter of pride for Muslims that 1500 years ago, Hazrat Umar Raziyallahu Ta'ala gave a monastery in Saniai, sanctuary. He said, this is an agreement between you and Umar Amirul Mu'mineen that Muslims will never interfere in your affairs. You will be free to conduct your services, your religion in the way that you see fit. And for 1500 years, no Muslim government has interfered in the affairs of that monastery. But what do we see today? We see journalists abducted, and then huge ransoms are demanded for them, and then they're beheaded publicly on television. And then Muslims complain we have a bad press. How are you going to get good press if you behead the national of another country? How are you going to get good press if you kidnap people and hold them for ransom? Muslims complain that there's propaganda in the West against them. What need is there for propaganda? Turn on the television. See what's happening in Libya. See what's happening in Egypt. See what's happening in Gaza. See what's happening in Syria. See what's happening in Iraq. See what's happening in Pakistan. See what's happening in Malaysia. See what's happening in Indonesia. What need is there for anyone to fabricate any untruth, any lie to denigrate Islam? We are doing it ourselves. For the last 10 or 20 years, we have been denigrating Islam. Not only those who perpetrate these things, but also those who, for whatever reason, fail to refute such actions, who fail to condemn such actions. Islam was not spread by force. How is it that a group of people in the name of Islam take over an area and say to everyone, unless you embrace Islam, unless you recite the kalima, we are going to kill you all? I don't know how true these reports are. And they kidnap their women. I know there is exaggeration. There are people who have a political agenda against Islam. And I belong to some of their websites, like from UK there is the Gatestone Institute, or a lady in America called Pamela, and there's another gentleman who, Robert something or other, I forget his name. They do have a political agenda. But the point is, we provide the raw material. They may add to it. Is it untrue that this journalist was beheaded because the American government refused to pay $100 million in ransom to save his life? Is it untrue that this member of their army came on television? And what amused me was, if this is Islamic, and if you're doing it in the name of Islam, and if it is such a good and meritorious deed, why don't you show your face? Why are you hiding behind a mask? I stand here and I say, I'm a Lahori Ahmadi and these are my views, and these things are seen over the internet on VirtualMosque, and these things then go on VirtualTube. And sometimes, accidentally, I meet people who recognize me, and I can't understand how, and apparently they've seen VirtualMosque. If this is your belief, why are you afraid of putting it forward? Why are you afraid of showing your face and saying, I'm the man, I believe this to be right, and I'm doing it. Here you are, Americans, I've cut this guy's head off. Why are you hiding? Islam will not spread by these acts and such actions. Muslim misery will not be reduced by such actions. Muslim misery will be reduced by going back to the way the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam behaved and the way his companions behaved. There was a shortage of water in Medina. Muslims were suffering. A Jew had a well, and he was asking for huge amounts for a bucket of water or a glass of water. Hazrat Usman Raziullah Ta'ala heard about this. He went and he said to the man, how much do you want for this? And the man said, well, it provides me with daily income, and if I sell it, I will lose all of that. So he asked for a huge amount, 10 times the market value of that property where the well was located. And Hazrat Usman said, well, there you are. He went to the Holy Prophet. Did he say, from tomorrow or from today, water will be sold at reasonable rates? Did he say, from tomorrow or from today, water will be sold at reasonable rates? Did he say everyone will be able to afford a glass of water? State now. Everyone, Muslim or non-Muslim, is free to go there and take water. Did he go and cut that Jew's head off? Did he attack him and kill him? What left a better message for us to follow? Going and killing him, or making this sacrifice? I reminded you a few weeks ago that the Holy Quran says, conduct jihad with what? First with your property, and then with your lives. And as I pointed out, even in the sequence in which the words were revealed to the Holy Prophet Muhammad, God had a purpose. Even that sequence had a purpose. And why? Because, as I said to you, people give up their lives to save £10 in their wallet. We all do that. If we went out and we were mugged and the man said, give me your wallet, what would we do? If he had a knife or a gun, would we give it? No. We'd fight for our wallet rather than give it to him. There may be only £20 in cash. All the credit cards we can always cancel as soon as the man is gone. But for that, the sake of that £20, we'll fight that man with a knife and risk our life. This is why God says, do jihad with your property and your possession, because they are dearer to you than your own lives. Lives come after. This is why the jihad of people like Hazrat Maulana Muhammad Ali and Khwaja Kamaluddin and Maulana Sadruddin and Maulana Abdul Haq Vidyarthi and Maulana Aftabuddin and all these people, the list is endless, was greater because they gave up lucrative careers. Hazrat Maulana Muhammad Ali could have ended up being Chief Justice of the World Court like Sir Zafrullah did. It was about at the same time that they were around. He was a greater lawyer. He gave it up. Hazrat Khwaja Kamaluddin was earning huge sums. At that time, when he came to plead a case before the Privy Council, I'm saying this from memory, Hazrat Khwaja Sahab charged 30,000 rupees. In today's terms, that would be something that would be equal to several million pounds. A man who was charging several million pounds to conduct one hearing, one case, gave it all up, and all the money he got from that, he used up for propagation of Islam in the UK. Did that convert more people to Islam? Did that remove more misunderstandings from the people's minds about Islam? Or all these killings that are going on now? Are they creating more misunderstandings or clearing them? You know, if you cut someone's head off, have you actually answered the objection that he has raised about Islam? The objection is still there. This is why Maulana Vidyarthi nearly went to jail. When Alimuddin was killed for writing a derogatory book about the Holy Prophet, and he was killed by a Hindu, Maulana said, well, you've killed the man, but his book is still there. His objections are still there. So he went on to write a reply to those objections, for which he was arrested and he was going to be put in jail, and et cetera, et cetera. So when we talk about going back to the Holy Quran, it's not just going back to criminal punishments. There's a lot more to the Holy Quran. It's all about our personal conduct. It's all about how we deal with and how we treat with our neighbors and our colleagues and our friends and our relatives. If you set yourself up as an example so that people see, and they see he's a nice person, regardless of who the neighbor is, if they're in trouble, he helps them. That would have a lot more impact about what Islam teaches than translating the Holy Quran into 190 different languages and spreading 50 million copies of it free to people who may not even be interested in reading it. It is sad. This is why Hazrat Sahib came, to put spirit into our prayers and our fasting. That is the first thing. If Islam doesn't change your heart, you're not going to change anyone else, whether you do translations or whether you cut their heads off. So today is Friday, and on Fridays I always ask you to pray for the whole of humanity, that God may relieve the problems and difficulties of everyone, regardless of their color or religion or nationality or caste or creed. But my request is that the whole of the Muslim Ummah is in such turmoil that not just on Fridays, but with every prayer, you pray to God to give our brothers sense and understanding of the Holy Quran, so that the blot on the beautiful face of Islam may be removed.